Welcome back. Tonight, we're taking a sobering world tour of 10 countries on the brink of collapse as we approach 2025. These are places where economic crises, political chaos, and social unrest have pushed societies to the edge. Collapse isn't sudden. It's a slow unraveling when governments can't provide, economies implode, and trust in institutions vanishes. We'll travel from the Mediterranean to South Asia, exploring how these crises are deeply interconnected. So, buckle up. This is a necessary look at the world's most fragile states. Let's dive in. First stop, Lebanon. Once the Paris of the Middle East, now a case study in collapse. The Lebanese pound has lost over 98% of its value. People's savings are gone. Banks are bankrupt. The 2020 Beirut port explosion symbolized state failure. Lebanon's future hangs by a thread. Venezuela, home to the world's largest oil reserves, yet gripped by hyperinflation and crisis. Years of nationalization and price controls destroyed the private sector. Shelves are empty, hospitals lack supplies, and millions have fled. The world watches as Venezuela, a nation in limbo, faces inevitable collapse. In Myanmar, a brief democratic experiment ended with a 2021 military coup. The Tatmadaw arrested elected leaders, sparking nationwide protests and strikes that paralyzed the economy. The military responded with brutal violence, killing thousands and jailing tens of thousands. What began as peaceful resistance has become a civil war, with local militias and ethnic armed groups fighting the junta. The military is stretched thin, unable to control vast areas outside major cities. Over 2 million are displaced, the economy has collapsed, and the healthcare system is in ruins. Myanmar is fracturing. No legitimacy, no services, just violence. The state is failing before our eyes. As 2025 nears, Myanmar faces not just collapse, but disintegration. The endgame is uncertain, but the suffering is immense. Sudan's 2019 revolution promised democracy, but the military shattered that hope with a coup. In 2023, rival generals turned Khartoum into a war zone, unleashing devastation on the population. Infrastructure is destroyed, millions are displaced, and famine looms as agriculture collapses. Both sides use food as a weapon, blocking aid and fueling a humanitarian nightmare. The country is fragmenting along ethnic and regional lines, with no functioning government. The social contract is gone. Sudan is a failed state. The world's largest displacement crisis is unfolding, but international efforts have failed to stop the violence. As 2025 approaches, Sudan is trapped in an abyss of war and hunger. The future is bleak, with no end in sight. Sudan's collapse is a warning to us all. The cost is measured in lives lost and hope destroyed. Yemen, site of the world's worst humanitarian crisis, yet largely forgotten. A civil war since 2014 has become a brutal proxy conflict, with Iran-backed Houthis against a Saudi-led coalition. Airstrikes, blockades, and sieges have devastated civilians, while both sides commit atrocities. The Saudi blockade has engineered famine. Millions, especially children, are malnourished. The healthcare system is destroyed, cholera is rampant, and the economy is in ruins. Yemen is split. Houthis in the north, fractured anti-Houthi forces in the south. A fragile truce has paused some fighting, but the country remains shattered. Rebuilding seems almost impossible. Yemen is a zombie state, kept alive by foreign interests. The suffering is immense, the future uncertain. Even if the guns fall silent, the wounds will last generations. Yemen's tragedy is a global shame. Haiti, once a beacon of freedom, now a state in name only. Gangs control most of Port-au-Prince, running territory, infrastructure, and daily life. The 2021 assassination of the president created a power vacuum, quickly filled by armed groups. The government is powerless, police are outgunned, and elections are impossible. Extreme poverty, natural disasters, and rampant violence have left more than half the population hungry. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, battered by crisis after crisis. International intervention is debated, but the challenges are immense. Haiti isn't just on the edge, it's in free fall. A humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding just a short flight from the US. Afghanistan. 40 years of crisis, now under Taliban rule again. The 2021 collapse of the US-backed government led to economic freefall and international isolation. Women and girls are erased from public life. The Taliban focus on ideology, not governance. Foreign aid vanished, the banking system froze, and mass starvation threatens millions. Afghanistan is a pariah, dependent on humanitarian aid it despises. Security is the security of a prison. No war, but no freedom. The risk of terrorism remains, and the state is a shell. Afghanistan is ruled by a regime dragging it back into darkness. The world watches, but hope is scarce. Sri Lanka, once a paradise, now a cautionary tale. In 2022, the country ran out of foreign currency, unable to import fuel, food, or medicine. Economic mismanagement, disastrous policies, and the pandemic wiped out tourism and revenue. The result, power cuts, empty shelves, and mass protests that toppled the president. A new government secured an IMF bailout, but austerity measures are painful and unpopular. Corruption and debt remain unresolved, especially to China. Sri Lanka stepped back from the brink, but the foundation is fragile. The crisis showed how quickly a middle-income country can collapse. Recovery is slow, and the risk of relapse is real. Sri Lanka's story is a warning for the world. Ethiopia, once a rising star, now scarred by civil war and famine. The Tigray conflict killed hundreds of thousands, with atrocities on all sides and a man-made famine. A fragile peace holds, but ethnic tensions and new conflicts simmer elsewhere. The economy is battered, debt is mounting, and drought is devastating millions. Ethiopia is a patchwork of ethnic groups, and the risk of fragmentation is real. The government struggles to regain control and rebuild trust. Ethiopia's collapse would destabilize the entire Horn of Africa. The future is uncertain. The wounds are deep. It's a giant teetering on cracked glass. Pakistan, a nuclear-armed nation of 240 million, mired in crisis. The economy is crippled by debt, inflation, and chronic energy shortages. Political chaos reigns, with the military pulling strings and democracy in disarray. Terrorism is resurging, and climate disasters like the 2022 floods expose deep vulnerabilities. No government has the stability to enact real reforms. The country lurches from one bailout to the next. Public trust is eroding, and the risk of collapse is existential. Pakistan's failure would have global consequences. It's not just on the edge, it's dancing on it. The world is holding its breath. 10 countries, 10 stories of crisis and resilience. These aren't just headlines, they're the daily reality for hundreds of millions. In our interconnected world, collapse in one place sends shockwaves everywhere. Understanding is the first step. Ignoring these crises won't make them disappear. The courage of those fighting for change deserves our attention. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit subscribe and join the conversation below. Which country surprised you most? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.